Hello there, John Bush here with Live Free Now and the Health Freedom Report. And today I am going to be breaking down the latest news on the coronavirus front. And we're going to talk about specifically, we're going to focus a lot on how there is a growing police state, surveillance state that already existed. There already was a police surveillance state, but it's expanding immensely due to this coronavirus stuff. It's like a problem, reaction, solution. And the powers that be are most definitely taking advantage of the opportunity. Like Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's exactly what is taking place now. So we are going to be sharing the news from healthfreedom.report. healthfreedom.report. I invite you to bookmark this website. It's updated regularly with the latest. It's styled after Drudge Report, in case you can't tell. But we're going to be covering some of the headlines that we have from here today. And I also want to let you know that this particular episode is sponsored by the Brave Health Store. Check out bravehealthstore.com. If you're following us on the Conscious Resistance, click on the link down there. Come and subscribe to our newsletter. Click on the link in the show notes there, and you can make sure the Conscious Resistance gets some support as well. We got all sorts of great natural health products. One of my favorites is called Zap. It's an immune-boosting tincture with garlic, cilantro, echinacea, all things that are good. I also want to invite you to comment. We can have a conversation. You can give your input on the news stories that we're going to be covering. First, I want to start with something that Derek Broze actually found. I should mention, too, we're partnered with the Conscious Resistance Network. Check out the website, theconsciousresistance.com. And Derek Broze has just been churning out videos on the Conscious Resistance YouTube page. I think he did like 5 videos today. One of them we'll be covering as part of our Health Freedom Report today. So I want to start by, Derek Broze brought this to my attention. There's all this talk about the COVID-19 and how serious it is or how not serious. And it's a broad spectrum. Some people thinking that we're completely screwed and we need to lock down and people are being mean to their friends for not taking it seriously. And then there's others that think it's a total fraud, total hoax. I happen to be somewhere there in the middle, but leaning towards the response by governments all across the globe is a little extreme and doesn't meet the problem, in my opinion. But I wanted to share something straight from the horse's mouth. Dr. Anthony Fauci, he is the leading infectious disease doctor in the U.S. He's on Trump's task force to deal with the coronavirus. Now, this is a March 26, 2020 post. This is the New England Journal of Medicine, which is a really prestigious journal, New England Journal of Medicine. And this was actually posted on February 28th. But I don't think that the date really makes a difference because what I'm about to read is pretty big deal, especially considering Fauci now is supporting these nationwide lockdowns and all this stuff. There isn't a nationwide lockdown, but supporting all the lockdowns. So let me just read this one part right here, this little paragraph. Again, this is Dr. Anthony Fauci and a couple other doctors, Clifford Lang, Robert Redfield, not sure who they are, but we know who Anthony Fauci is. And in this little journal article, he says, on the basis of a case definition requiring a diagnosis of pneumonia, the currently reported case rate fatality rate is approximately 2%. In another article in the journal, report mortality of 1.4% among 1,099 patients with laboratory confirmed COVID-19. So this is a journal article, another journal article that talks about a 1.4% mortality rate with 1,099 patients. These patients had a wide spectrum of disease severity. If one assumes that the numbers of asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic cases is several times as high as the number of reported cases, the case fatality rate may be considerably less than 1%. And this is something that I've been saying all along. To get the mortality rate, you divide the number of deaths into the number of cases, and then you multiply that by 100 to get a percentage. And early on, they were saying it's going to be 2 to 4%. We're seeing that it's more like 1.5, 1.3. It depends on where. Different areas have different percentages. Like Italy had a higher mortality rate, presumably because they have a older population. There's a lot of smoking. There's all sorts of factors that would go into this. But a lot of people are saying that the mortality rate is going to be considerably less because we don't have all the known cases, especially in the United States, where because of the FDA, because of regulations in large part, there hasn't been a huge rollout of testing, even though Trump is like touting that they're going to have the most tests out of any country, or he says that they are. I don't think that that's necessarily true. Maybe per capita, perhaps, although he said that per capita will have the most, but I don't think that seems to be the case right now. But especially here in Austin, Texas, and Travis County, they're turning away all sorts of people, even if they have a lot of symptoms and they're potentially a known coronavirus case. But the idea is there's a lot of people that are asymptomatic. They're not showing symptoms that have coronavirus. There's also studies based on China's numbers that 80% of the people that get the coronavirus have mild to no symptoms whatsoever. So the number of coronavirus cases is likely substantially higher than the number of reported cases, and it's only the number of reported cases that's utilized in determining what the mortality rate is. And this is something I've been saying, but now here we have Dr. Anthony Fauci also saying it. And he goes on to say, which is something that's like super taboo, and you could basically be strung up for saying this these days. This suggests that the overall clinical consequences of COVID-19 may ultimately be more akin to those of a severe seasonal influenza or pandemic influenza, similar to those in 1957, 1968, rather than a disease similar to SARS or MERS, which are two big pandemics that took place last century, which have a case fatality rate of 9 to 10% and 36% respectively. In MERS, 36%. So, as I was saying earlier, I don't think that the solution that's being put forward by the powers that be, by local, state, federal governments, national governments, fits the problem, which is indeed a problem. I'm not going to come out here and tell you the whole thing's a hoax and it's a fraud and we need to ignore it completely. Now, shortly after this, well, this was published on February 28th, but shortly after this was republished on this website, Fauci and the lady Blix, I think, this other woman doctor that are always flanking Trump during these reports, these press conferences, they came out and said that the deaths could be 100 to 200,000 in numbers. And now some people will be like, well, it's going to be like the flu, or it could be less than 1% mortality rate. But I think the idea is, and what the big concern about coronavirus is how contagious the virus is. I mean, we see reports of coronavirus spreading up to 24 feet. You never know how sensationalist some of these reports are. And obviously we know a lot of the mainstream media, they're pushing the sensationalism, not only because, it sells more and people are going to be more in tune, but we do know that, Operation Mockingbird and the CIA does have great influence on the mainstream media outlets. And I genuinely believe that there is a conspiracy at play, whether it's such that it's just like so drawn out, like the New World Order blueprint, or that it's rulers taking advantage and those in power wanting more power and wanting to solidify their power. How conscious the conspiracy is remains to be seen. We may never know, but based on decades of research in this realm, we can bet that it's pretty, they're carrying out a plan and a program here, in my opinion, right? But the idea is you never know what exactly what it is that they are telling you the truth about. And they're saying that it lasts on surface up to 17 days. It can be spread simply by talking, not just coughing or sneezing. And so the idea is, even though the mortality rate is going to be far less than SARS or MERS, and it could end up being 1.5%, less than 1%, whatever, the idea is that it's so damn contagious, so many more people are going to have it, and that 1% of mortality rate, that's going to be a significantly large number of people. So do I think that it's justified to completely shut down and shelter in mass numbers of people across vast geographic political jurisdictions? No. Do I think it's something that we ought to be concerned about and take proper precautions? Yes. I don't think we need to freak out. And as I've said in a previous video, I think the more appropriate response would have been to shelter in those populations that are more susceptible to fatality. So there's that. We got some people, is 5G causing sickness and death? It's 5G causing the sickness and death. I haven't looked as in depth to that connection. I know that Derek Bros, who's definitely a 5G expert, even did a documentary on 5G. I don't think he's seen the connection there. People are seeing the connection, and as we'll report, why don't we go ahead and report on that now? We see that people across the world even are tearing down the 5G towers now and saying, where is this? This is up in the breaking news here. Speaking of 5G, check out this story. Activists burn 5G towers. Now, of course, the Sun here, they say, holy smokes, idiots burning 5G masts after conspiracy that radiation-sparked coronavirus is spread by celebs. I don't know what celebrities are saying that, but hopefully this picture will show up here. There are people that are taking that very seriously. I'm not going to take a position because I haven't done all the research on it, but there are people that are taking it seriously, and they're taking action in their own hands, setting 5G towers ablaze. So that's quite the trip. And, you know, one thing that they pointed out, and this could be because it's spread from the rest of the world, but they say that there are cases in Africa of coronavirus. However, there aren't 5G towers allegedly in Africa. So that's that. But I wanted to, you know, one of the big topics I want to talk about is that this coronavirus pandemic is furthering the creation of a police surveillance state. And this is, people are just buying it hook, line, and sinker. I just got banned from Facebook for 30 more days because I was looking to hire people to help me sell hand sanitizer. It's colloidal silver alcohol-based hand sanitizer. And I posted and said, I'm looking to hire some people to help me sell this hand sanitizer. I've had a lot of success selling it to gas stations and liquor stores. And because of that, the Facebook algorithm, or maybe some hater reported it. They thought I was trying to sell alcohol, which is a big stretch. Yes, it does have alcohol in it, but no one's getting drunk off the colloidal silver alcohol hand sanitizer. So I got banned for 30 days, which is a bummer. But there were people that I'm friends with from high school. And because I'm not taking this whole thing as seriously as they thought I should, like this one girl posted that I don't care if you call me Karen, but I called 311, which is like the city little, it's not the police, not 911. I called 311 because I got a text message that people were going to go to a bar and we're supposed to have a shelter in. And so I was poking fun at her about Karen and sharing memes and stuff. And she was like, she private messaged me and was like, hey, why are you trying to antagonize me? I just prefer if you stopped communicating with me. So the media and the government and these crazy projections, many of which are more likely going to be way far off, have got everyone worked into a frenzy to the point where they are going to, the masses and the public are going to willingly accept a loss of their freedom and liberty. And of course, for those of you that were paying attention during 9/11, in the wake of 9/11, this is the classic playbook that's being played out of the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. The powers that be, the puppeteers, the rulers either create the problem or they leverage the problem. People get worked up into a frenzy, all emotional and scared. Fear is usually a really strong motivator. Then they roll out the reaction. That's the reaction. They're worked up. Then they roll out the solution. And in this case, the solution is vaccines, surveillance through smartphone, which we're going to talk about, more checkpoints, shelter in, controlling of populations. And so because everyone's so scared and freaked out, they're going to willingly accept these more controls. And then there's even shame and ridiculing going on that are taking place. It's nuts. All right, we got some folks commenting here. What do we have here? Blue Pill says, look up scenarios for future technology and international development by the Rockefeller Foundation, page 18, written in 2010, gives a description of this pandemic and the playbook they are using. Yeah, I know there was, of course, Event 201 that was taking place shortly before this whole pandemic, which I don't necessarily think means that because Event 201 happened, they planned this pandemic or made it happen, right? It's the same thing as 9/11 truth. It's like MIHOP and LIHOP made it happen intentionally with explosives, or let it happen. They let the pandemic, they let the Al-Qaeda attack the towers, right? I was always a MIHOP guy, but it's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, did they make it happen? Is it a bioweapon? Was it intentional, the unleashing of this coronavirus? Did they put the virus out there and then they used their 5G technology to activate it in Wuhan, which was one of the first places to roll out 5G? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I know that the response is going to be more police state, more surveillance state, more control, more tyranny. Before I get into some of the surveillance and police state, now that we're talking about the Rockefeller Foundation and stuff, interestingly enough, our good friend, Dr. Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State under Nixon and Ford and globalist extraordinaire, he's always there at the forefront of all these organizations and groups and putting out all sorts of stuff, trying to create a new global order, a new world order, a global totalitarian dictatorship. Henry Kissinger is also the one that famously said we should use food as a weapon. He put out a little opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal. The coronavirus pandemic will forever alter the world order. The U.S. must protect its citizens from disease while starting the urgent work of planning for a new epoch. And so, oh no, I have to subscribe. We can take care of that real quick by doing a private window, I think, because I already looked at it once. I don't know if you guys do private windows or not. Let me do that again. And so here we have Henry Kissinger that's leveraging this opportunity to push his globalist ideas. And you can, oh man, sorry guys. He goes on to say something like, this isn't a national problem. This is something, the virus transcends national borders. And he also talks a lot about how if the governments fail to respond to this appropriately and get it under wraps, then people could lose faith in the institution of government. And he says that Americans are demonstrating that they can't self-govern. And then in the next paragraph, he talks about this virus transcends borders and we need a global response. So, of course, here we have everyone coming to take advantage of the opportunity to push whatever their agenda is. And you know what? I'm taking advantage of it too. My agenda is freedom. And I've put out videos and I've been professing that in the wake of all of this crazy crisis, we have the opportunity as freedom lovers, as radical innovators, as entrepreneurs, to create a new order, one that is spontaneous order and a beautiful, decentralized, freedom-based social organization, new infrastructure, decentralized economies, growing your own food, shopping at the farmer's market kind of deal. So we should take advantage of this opportunity as well, because Lord knows the enemies of freedom are definitely taking advantage of the opportunity. So we see the rollout of medical tyranny, police state, and surveillance state. And here's the story that Derek Broze covered. And this was from someone's Facebook page. We called it Shock Video. Can you guys let me know if y'all can hear the audio there in the comments? Did you just hear the audio there?
Interesting.
If you could let me know in the comments. Can you hear this audio?
I'm really hoping, if you haven't seen it, that you will share it with other people, because I think...
Yes? No? Can you hear? Anyway, this is a story of a gentleman who went to the hospital because he was experiencing some health issues surrounding a cough. And when he got there, he decided, hey, this is kind of intense. I don't want to be here anymore. And he wanted to get the heck out of there. Thanks for letting me know you guys can hear it. I'm using a really cool program called StreamYard. And so Derek Broze covered this in length earlier. We're just going to give you some of the highlights. But he's like, okay, this is a little much. I want to get the heck out of here. This guy's a conspiracy guy too, because he says in some of his stuff that he believes that the virus is a hoax. And so there's police officers in here. And they're wanting to do a blood test. They're wanting to stick them with a needle and do a blood test. And of course, there's this whole stuff about the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm, and the idea that we need to consent to all medical procedures, right? That's like a Western world maxim. And here, again, that'll be the theme for this Health Freedom Report, that because government and media has everyone worked up into a pandemic frenzy, we are going to see an erosion of civil liberties, an erosion of privacy, and the growth of the police surveillance state. And we're going to see more medical tyranny. And that's exactly what we see taking place in this video. So you can see how frightening this must be with all these guys here. You can see their badges. There's a couple doctors in the room, but it's mostly big cops.
Can't do that. Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? No, not under arrest. Well, how can you force me to do something?
So, James,
Try not to. How can you force me to do something if I'm not under arrest?
listen, I'm trying to explain to you. The
Some shit don't change.
doctors talk to you.
Some shit
The
don't
doctors
change today,
decided
bro.
that you didn't
Y'all
have-
talked to me when I was a kid.
I'm trying to explain.
I was a kid too. And I'm a man.
All right, and so again, watch the video that Derek Bros put out. But one of the scariest things that happens in this is because he says that he doesn't believe the coronavirus is real, they then go ahead, because he's like, I need a lawyer. Am I under arrest? And they're like, well, we don't think that you're able to make medical decisions for yourself. So we're going to go ahead and force this upon you. And the video goes on and it ends with them basically forcing themselves upon him and using coercion. This is what the state is all about. It's all about coercion. That's how the state works. And at the end of the day, if you don't comply, they're going to force you.
Can anybody know a lawyer, bro? Somebody send me a lawyer?
So here they go. They get him.
Bro, no! Come on, James. It don't work like that, man. This shit ain't right, man.
That guy puts the camera down. So we have medical tyranny taking place in the United States of America, and it's all under the guise of keeping people safe from the coronavirus. But it all comes down to like, okay, at what cost, right? At the cost of your privacy, at the cost of your medical sovereignty over your own body, at the cost of our freedom, our liberties. So that's trending here on the Health Freedom Report. And, you know, here's some other scary stuff going on. French police, the latest to use speaker drones to enforce coronavirus lockdown. Can you believe this? In France, the police are rolling out drones, and the drones are following people around and saying, hey, you shouldn't be out right now. This is absolutely nuts. It's like a dystopian movie, but it's reality. Like I said before, things are going to get a lot worse as far as the coronavirus goes, and the response by the state and the powers that be is going to get a lot worse. So it's absolutely imperative that we really double down our efforts here as activists, as liberty activists, as free thinkers, because if we don't, this is simply going to continue to march on. Growing number of countries are imposing lockdowns as part of efforts to slow the spread of coronavirus, formerly known as COVID-19. Lockdowns are currently in place in countries such as Italy, Spain, France. They've ordered their citizens to stay indoors. Similarly, drastic measures are being taken in states across the U.S., among them California, New York, and New Jersey. But some people are flouting the order, prompting cops in the French city of Nice to deploy speaker drones that blast out messages to remind people the strict rules that are currently in place. And of course, we see this taking place in China as well. China's like the proving grounds. Remember old Alex Jones, love him or hate him, he's way ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff. He would always talk about China being the proving ground, the testing ground before they roll all this stuff out across the world. It follows similar drone deployments in parts of China as well as Madrid and Spain. Video below, released by AFP news agency, shows a speaker-equipped drone barking the recently imposed rules to people who are still out and about. Let's watch this video. Video unavailable contains content from AFP who's blocked it from display on this website. Well, I guess we go to watch on YouTube. I don't know why anyone would want to block the spread of their video. Here we go. Check it out.
Tous les déplacements hors du domicile sont interdits sauf dérogation. Veuillez respecter une distance de sécurité d'au moins 1 mètre entre chaque personne. Rappel des consignes relatives à...
This is nuts. It is a dystopian future. We're living in a dystopian movie like 1984, but it's real and it's crazy. And it's people that are going to the beach. And it's like, and again, there's this acceptance of it because people are so afraid. And then it gets into like, people wouldn't be so susceptible to this damn virus, and there wouldn't be so much fear of death if people had a little more spirituality in their lives, and if they were a little more serious about their health. And so we have the person that's pounding McDonald's, drinking giant 60-ounce Route 66 sodas that probably have like 150 grams of sugar, pumping themselves full of pharmaceuticals, smoking cigarettes, drinking booze, stressing out their entire life because they hate their lives. These are the same people that are afraid to die from the coronavirus, that are in turn rooting on the growth of the police state against their fellow human beings. And it's just like, what the hell's going on here? So again, I'm not just reporting the news, but I want to encourage you guys to understand that we're all powerful human beings. And when we all stand united and we all take action and we all share these ideas, because these ideas of freedom and people are sovereign and natural health is a good thing, and we should care more about our body and treat one another with respect and love and compassion, those ideas resonate more with the human condition. And it's these tyranny ideas that in order to carry them forward, they need to pull off false flag attacks like 9/11. In order to bring out drones that bark at people and order people around, you need to have a crazy coronavirus pandemic that's exacerbated by the sensationalist media, you see? So that's why I always remain optimistic, because the powers that be, the ruling class, and these like shadow puppeteers, right? The New World Order, Illuminati, Committee of 300, Bilderbergers, whatever the hell you want to call them. There's different factions, right? It's not just the Jesuits, as my friend here keeps commenting. It's not just the Zionists. It's not just the Anglo-American establishment, right? There's all these competing factions, and we want them to compete and be fractured amongst one another, right? It's like the strategy of bloodletting in war. There's like a bunch of different countries at war, and you just let two countries duke it out, right? Let's let the elites duke it out with one another and exploit some of their vulnerabilities. But they always have to use the art of deception in order to carry forward their plan. But the beauty of, like Jesus Christ's message, for example, and just the message of peace, and Martin Luther King, it's the real deal, and it's easier to flow. You don't have to use deception and violence in order to bring it about and spread it. So just throwing that in there, encouraging people to remain positive. All right, now we have the UK. Should UK police use drones to disinfect public spaces? Can you imagine that? A drone rolling around spraying Lysol all over everything? They do this in some communities in order to combat mosquitoes, and I, for one, object to that. I'm a natural kind of guy. I don't like to have chemicals involved in any part of my life. And now they have, in China and India, aerial spraying is largely banned in Europe, but it's been done in China and in India. And now because of coronavirus, it's like, oh, well, the UK is like, well, we don't normally do that, but maybe it's not such a bad idea. Maybe we should relax regulations on chemical spraying. And of course, there's all these reports of like the CIA or maybe it was the FBI. Who was it? No, it was the United States military in St. Louis. They were doing these tests where they were dropping all these chemicals and stuff in poor, highly African-American projects in St. Louis. So it wouldn't be the first time government sprayed all sorts of nasty stuff all over people. Oh, it's no good, man. Here we go. Europe technocrats to use cell phone technology to track people with coronavirus. This is one we saw coming, and they're already doing this in Singapore. They're already doing this in China. This is the Reuters Foundation. Let's see what we got going on here. European experts ready smartphone technology to help halt coronavirus spread. And if you can see, I changed the headline there on the Drudge Report to say European technocrats, not experts, because they write these articles. It's so easy to see mainstream articles, how they put their little spin on it. And it's just so like cunning and coy. European experts ready smartphone technology to help halt coronavirus spread. And then the stupid public is like, oh, well, experts said to do it. I trust experts. I trust authorities. Let's go ahead and do it. Platform aims to trace those at risk across borders. Asian mobile tracing helped, but would violate the EU rules. Oh, we better relax those regulations. A group of European experts said on Wednesday they would soon launch technology for smartphones to help trace people who would come into contact with those infected with coronavirus, helping the health authorities act swiftly to halt its spread. So we have this coming into place for coronavirus, but then it's going to spread like mission creep all over everything else. Just like after 9/11, you have the Patriot Act and the Joint Terrorism Task Force. That was actually after the Oklahoma City bombing. But you had the fusion centers, right? I did a lot of work early on exposing the fusion centers, the multi-jurisdictional merging local, state, and federal law enforcement, information gathering, intelligence sharing, and they sold it to the American public. They didn't even sell it to the American public. They just did it. It's not like they had to have the approval of the American public. It was supposed to be to prevent terrorism, but it slowly started spreading to all forms of political speech and basically any protests that were going on. The local law enforcement were finding the Facebook group and that Facebook event and sharing the name of the leader and stuff. We see the same thing. They're going to roll out this tracing technology, which they already have. This is another tactic or ploy of a con man, right? You're already doing it, and then you start telling it. This is one of the New World Order's little shadow, like it's a satanic thing, I think, where you have to tell your victims that you're harming them, and you in some ways get a tacit consent. And so they've already been doing this. Now they're rolling it out in a public sphere, and it's not going to go away when this coronavirus thing dies down. Not to mention, this coronavirus thing likely isn't going to die down. It's going to keep coming back. Like we had H1N1. It was this big scare, and it was like killed a whole lot of people. Now there's a H1N1 vaccine, and H1N1 is just another flu strain that's there, and it's a seasonal thing. The same thing's going to happen with coronavirus, and everyone's going to flip out, and this cell phone tracking technology isn't going to go away. But you know what? Maybe I'm complicit in some ways too, because I still use Google. I still use my smartphone. I don't have a camera sticker covered up because I use these live videos for so damn long. No divide and conquer saying we do not consent. Well, I don't know what you posted that with, my friend, but if you have a cell phone, in some ways you're consenting. You probably consented when you agreed to the privacy policy as well. So I don't know what to do about that. I'm not going to give up my smartphone, but I'm also going to complain about the tracking of Google and stuff. I feel kind of inconsistent and like a hypocrite about that. Here we have as our main story on the same thing. Google releases location data to help authorities track coronavirus and to check on lockdowns, right? So Trump came out recently, and the Trump task force was like, people aren't following the task force as well as they should. And they know about it now because almost everybody has a freaking smartphone, and the smartphone tracks where you're going. And now that technology is being used to monitor if people are compliant or not. Now, other countries are going to be able to get away with this easier, in my opinion. Here in the United States, yes, we do have a bunch of statists that willingly love the government. But in the US, there's at least this strain of individualism, and the way that this country was brought about, the rebellion, right? Even though a lot of that was BS as well, especially the US Constitution. The Declaration of Independence had some great libertarian underpinnings, but there's still this, especially in the state of Texas and southern states, it's like, nah, we're not going to go for that. But in other countries, they're already rolling this out, and it's like, we're going to track you. We're going to track your movement through your smartphone. And if you don't comply, then we're going to send the drone out to tase you. Like, this kind of stuff is going to be rolling out. I don't think that's happening right now. They do have drones that are equipped with tasers, but that's not happening because of this. But it could happen, and hopefully it doesn't happen here. Alphabet's Google division has on Thursday published data for 131 countries that shows whether people are obeying self-isolating and quarantine rules. The community mobility reports from the search engine giant showed whether visits to shops, parks, and workplaces dropped in March. March is when many countries around the world brought in their lockdown rules, and readers can click here to see the Google reports for their particular country. Let's click there and see what it's all about. Country breakdowns. According to data from World Health Organization, 13,915 people have died in that country. Italy remains one of the hardest hit countries in the world. Google data shows that Italians were obeying lockdown rules, with visits to retail and recreational locations, including restaurants and cinemas, falling 94%, while visits to places of work fell 63%. Oh, man. So let's see. Did we open up Google's? It didn't seem to open. All right. Anyway, you get the picture. This is Bad News Bears. It's happening all over the place. And here's another story. Kentucky coronavirus patients ordered to wear ankle bracelets. So in Louisville, Kentucky, people that aren't willing to self-isolate are getting shackled with freaking tracking bracelets. And that is absolutely nuts. And I can't believe that that the people are allowing this to happen. It's crazy. The home incarceration program is well suited for this. It provides us with the proper amount of distancing. We can monitor activity after it gets affixed to them to make sure they're not further affecting the community. 2 Louisville coronavirus patients and a family member have been ordered by the circuit judges to isolate and wear tracking devices after health officials learned they've been in public against medical advice. Issuing health-related civil orders is new territory for the courts, according to Judge Charles Cunningham, who issued 2 Friday. The third was issued earlier this month when a South End resident who tested positive for coronavirus refused to self-isolate. So now we're being tracked by the smartphones. You have an ankle bracelets put on. And I couldn't find this story, but I read the headline where there's checkpoints where they're checking people. They have the technology where you can scan the temperature of the people in the car. And now we have mass checkpoints. Coronavirus checkpoints are springing up in Florida. There's coronavirus checkpoints in Rhode Island. On Friday, Governor Ron DeSantis issued an executive order that places checkpoints along roads into the states to try to prevent the spread of COVID-19. By Sunday, those checkpoints were up and running. So they're checking to see where you were, where you're coming from, where you've been. Fourth Amendment apparently doesn't apply. And there's all these people that are like, oh, this is against the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment and Fifth Amendment right to due process. Well, I got news for you guys. Like George Bush said after 9/11, when everyone was given a hard time about civil liberties, he said the Constitution is just a goddamn piece of paper. And you know what? Love it or not, he's right. It's just a piece of paper. It's paper written. It's rules that are supposed to govern the United States federal government and limit its power, but it's never done that. It's never been about that. And you can bet your bottom dollar, your bottom inflated dollar, in the case of an emergency, especially one of this scale, whether it's contrived or not, the Constitution's constraints and controls and the Bill of Rights is going to be thrown out the door. And whenever they execute their continuity of government program and they roll out with these emergency powers at the state, local, and federal level, the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply anymore. The Fifth Amendment doesn't apply anymore. And what are people going to do about it? They're going to take it up in the courts with lawsuits and stuff. Meanwhile, the boot is already on everybody's throats. Man, I usually try to have more good news and stuff, but just reading these headlines, it's bad news bears. Let's talk about the economy. Let me get some of these comments here real quick, and then we're going to move on to some economy. Then we're going to finish on some advice on how you can boost your immune system. There's at least some good articles about some good stuff. All right, we got the Grateful Hectic. He's always saying it's the Jesuits. I don't attribute the terrible things happening in this country to one particular group or one particular religious order or even one particular secret society. Like I was saying before, there's all sorts of different factions at war with each other. James Huckleby says the gun grab could get nasty. You know, I'm not as concerned about a gun grab in places like the great state of Texas where I am. I don't think that, and then, you know, the Attorney General in Texas just said that gun stores are considered essential businesses. Like the city of Austin, they tried to say that gun stores aren't essential businesses. And my good friend Michael Cargill at Central Texas Gun Works, who's a badass activist and has a huge set of huevos on him, he's like, no, we're going to stay open. The Second Amendment is essential to protecting freedom. The city of Austin, the Austin Police Department, code enforcement, they all showed up to his place of business. And he's like, well, I'm not shutting down. It's kind of hard to coerce a gun store owner into shutting down. You're surrounded by all sorts of guns. All the staff is all armed. And then like 2 days later, the Attorney General was like, no. State of Texas, gun stores are considered essential. So I do think that gun grabs are happening and will happen, but especially in states like Connecticut, Massachusetts, California, New York, kind of stuff's not going to happen here in the great state of Texas. Grateful Heretic. The solution is always a war, and they have even calling it now. We're at war with the coronavirus. Next came the big power and money grab and the deregulation of industry in the process. Fascism. Well, I agree. They're calling it a war, and war gets everyone hyped up, and war justifies more control and powers right at wartime. Now we see Trump using the War Powers Act, which enables him, this is what I call fascism, enabling him to basically take over sectors of industry and force them to produce and stop exporting, right, interfere in business. But I think that the deregulation of industry actually, in my opinion, would be the opposite of fascism, because regulations work where the largest players in a given industry come in and work with the regulatory agencies in order to create rules that make it harder for the little guy to compete with the big guy. And I think the regulations are more of the merging of the state and the corporations, and deregulating, especially like a total deregulation down to the free market, a genuinely free market with all voluntary exchange, people operating for mutual benefit. That to me would be the opposite of fascism, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. What else do we have here? More talk about the Jesuits. Never forget that doctors are agents of the state. You know, I guess with the medical license, yeah, and one of the unfortunate parts about good doctors that want to prescribe CBD, for example, when there's all this uncertainty, they're like, oh, I don't think I can do this. This isn't accepted by the medical norm, so they back away from it, unfortunately. So yeah, that's a good point. Same thing with attorneys too. They don't want to buck the system too much, or they'll have their license taken away, and they can't. And it's even like, I don't know if it's the same thing with medical license, but the bar is like British accreditation royalty or something like that. It's a British institution back from the royal days. James Huckleby says, we turn the military, we win. You know, the whole military coup thing just doesn't resonate with me, because I don't trust military generals. I don't trust military brass to come in. And I mean, maybe we have different goals. Like if your goal is to restore the republic, first of all, this country never was a republic. Even in the early days, there were mass groups of people that had no rights, that were completely oppressed and coerced. And there was like fiefdoms, geographic monopolies with the governors controlling everyone and taxing. It wasn't never like this glorious republic. But if your goal is to like restore the republic, or to somehow have some sort of patriotic win, or like for Trump to use the military to throw out the deep state or something, then I don't know. But my goal is total freedom, 100% free society without coercive hierarchies and monopolies. And the military, a standing army, is just that. So I got to disagree. With that one. Given all the cool toys that the military industrial complex itself is using against us, we need our military officers and ranks to do this professionally and peacefully for us and for themselves. I mean, I'm not going to complain if the military all of a sudden throws out the deep state or the powers that be, but I don't think that that would necessarily bring about what it is that we really need. So let's go through some more comments here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Invite you to join my little email newsletter. You can see a link there, and we'll be sending out regular emails every time that we do one of these videos. I invite you to take advantage of some of the great offers we have. If you buy 3, you get 20% off on Zap Immune Formula. We also have an all-natural hand sanitizer spray. If you are taking this seriously, like I am, not taking this serious as the media would like me to take it, but I do think that I certainly don't want to get coronavirus myself. I'm not like Joel Salatin we reported on in the last Health Freedom Report, or he's like, bring on the coronavirus. I want to go ahead and get the antibodies. But we do have some really good hand sanitizer that uses colloidal silver. Total suppression of vitamin C's ability to stop the virus. I don't know if we were talking about 5G or something when you said that. This is a mind virus. That is correct. Humans are the virus. Maybe this guy's an anarcho-primitivist that isn't afraid of civilization. But yeah, it's definitely a mind virus. And it's like fear is a huge virus. And yeah, it's trouble. We do not consent, says No, divide and conquer. Well, man, they're just crushing forward. They don't even need our consent to create this. Well, you know, in mass, they do need our consent. And if enough people were to opt out and to rebel, then their whole system would come crumbling in. But unfortunately, the masses are there funding, going along to get along, being like Karen and ratting out their neighbors and stuff. So We're coming up on 45 minutes. We're probably going to try to wrap this up before an hour. So I appreciate your comments. I'm tired of people saying Trump or Q or Jesus is going to save us. I feel that. I'm not the Q thing. People just, I've been doing conspiracy research since 2002, and it really humors me when I'm like, oh, I don't think the internet's going to shut down for 3 to 10 days or something, or I don't think Oprah got arrested, or all this stuff. And they're like, you just need to dig deeper. You haven't done your research. And I'm like, man, I was doing research when what? You were in middle school? No, I'm an old guy. I'm like 35, but still, QAnon is CIA controlled. I don't know that it is, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe it is. But I think it's more just like some 4chan trolls. It's probably not even one person. There's like, I don't know. I think it's BS. Doesn't matter. I'm a big fan of this guy named Grant Cardone. He's like a success business guy. And he was talking about the coronavirus today. And he has some conspiracy theorist blood in his veins. For example, he was at the Mandalay Bay when the Las Vegas shooting took place. And he talked about on an interview that he did with, what's that guy's name? The guy that's always on Facebook with the Lamborghinis and stuff in his garage, Tai Lopez. And he's like, yeah, man, I don't know how anybody could have brought in all those guns without getting stopped. All those guns, you can't bring all that stuff in. You know how much weight that would have taken? And he's like done videos on the New World Order and stuff. But anyway, he's like, coronavirus, whether it was some Wuhan bioweapons lab, whether it's the CIA that did it, it doesn't matter. What matters is, what am I going to do now? How am I going to continue to earn a living? How am I going to continue to grow, to take market share in these crazy times? All right, so let us now talk about the economy. So the soaring U.S. unemployment rate. So this is, I have like a little freedom cell that's comprised of my family and my life partner and my roommate. And I just sent them an email. I was sending them messages warning like this. I don't think the virus is the big concern, but people's response to the virus, get at least 2 weeks worth of storable food, which I've now upgraded to have like more like a month to 3 months. If you can have that much storable food, if you can afford to get all that food, you need to get it. And I was like, we need to go get yourself an N95 mask, get yourself some storable food, brace for the impact, be prepared to shift your life. They may, like I have nieces and nephews, they may need to stay home from school. Like this is really going to change. And one person in my family was like, no, this is BS. This is going to roll through. But all that stuff that I predicted ended up really happening. And now I just sent a message out today, and it's like, I think that we need to start being prepared for the potential of an economic depression, not just a recession, but an economic depression, in which case that's when things are really going to get bad. And there's really going to be social unrest. We already see on the Health Freedom Report, the New York City's preparing, they're boarding up doors, preparing for civil unrest. I think this is going to be great trouble. And we could have some really big economic fallout, especially since the Fed is like pumping all sorts of trillions of dollars into the economy, and it's all sorts of funny money. It's going to be an economic shitstorm, like Jonah Curie says, indeed. So here's a story from MarketWatch. The soaring U.S. unemployment rate could approach Great Depression era levels. The soaring U.S. employment rate might not match the peak of 25% seen during the Great Depression in the 1930s, but it could come uncomfortably close in the next few months. And just imagine that 25% of people, maybe it's 20%, maybe it's 15%, not working. Not only does that have major repercussions for the economic health of this country, but it also has problems for people's emotional health, and that reverberates. Like if you have 20, 15, 20, 25% of an entire group of people, that's like what, 350 million now, or some huge number of people in this country, and they're not productive, and they're out of work, and they're sitting around at home consuming mainstream media and arguing with people on social media, they're going to start to have major mental health issues, and people are going to snap. Couple that with not being able to provide for your family, feelings of inadequacy, and not being able to eat, not being able to feed your kids. People are going to flip the F out. And like I was telling my family earlier, one of the things I mentioned is having firearms and having access to ammunition, something I need to stock up on ammunition. My good friend Michael Cargill at Central Texas Gun Works, who kept his doors open even though the city tried to shut him down. Shit's going to get real bad. More than 10 million people applied for unemployment benefits in the last 2 weeks of March after being thrown out of work by the business shutdowns due to the coronavirus pandemic. And then we see, so like, there's like this stopgap, like there's all this steam. The government's trying to put a little valve on the steam so people don't freak out. And they're like, don't worry, we passed this $2 trillion stimulus and $500 billion is going to go to the people in the form of these checks, $1,200 up to $3,500, whatever, if you have kids. But what we see taking place is, this is up in one of our breaking news stories. Which one is it? Some people may not get their stimulus checks for 6 months. You know, people are going to freak out. They said that the stimulus check were going to come in like 2 weeks. That's what Trump was saying when they first started talking about the stimulus, universal basic income BS. The federal government expects to begin making payments to millions of Americans under the new stimulus law in mid-April. But some people without direct deposit information may not get checks until mid-August or later, according to a memo obtained by the Associated Press. People are going to start to freak out. Here we have No Divide and Conquer saying we need to unite. That's right. We need to unite. We need to have a united front. And one thing that you can do to unite behind, I think, is Freedom Cells. I had to unplug my keyboard down here. freedomcells.org. This is a social organization strategy that's decentralized, peer-to-peer, small groups of people uniting, linking up with other small groups of people and forming bigger groups, engaging in mutual aid, peer-to-peer, mutual defense, economic support, trading amongst one another. So we need to unite. And here's a great thing you can unite behind: the Freedom Cell Network. There's different groups. You can log in. You can see the different groups. So definitely check that out. We do need to unite, and we need to be prepared because things are going to be getting bad. So not only do we have stimulus checks not coming, and you know, I hope this would be a big eye opener. Like, I'm big on entrepreneurship and success in business, and thank God that I've been hustling my ass off and have some serious momentum going into this crisis. And people are now more interested in my job. How I earn my income is Brave Botanicals. Go to mybravebotanicals.com. I sell Kratom and CBD. Kratom's a member of the coffee family. It's this little powder. It helps you with stress, anxiety. Other varieties are good for pain, relaxation, sleep. Maybe some of you in Derek Brose's audience have tried it. If you want to try a free ounce, all you got to do is pay $5 shipping and handling. You can go to bros.freeounceofkratom.com. bros.freeounceofkratom.com. That's right. Texas boys will survive. Yeehaw, baby. But I already had all this momentum in my business, and I was following this guy, Grant Cardone, that was talking about how in periods of economic contraction, that's where you go and expand. And not only did I have that mindset in my business, was really had a lot of momentum, but I'm in the natural products industry. And now that people are freaking out about their health, they are looking for more solutions and more natural products and supplements. But on top of that, I was like, okay, there's a crisis going on. Like I said at the top of the hour, Rahm Emanuel said, never let a crisis go to waste. I'm in that same mindset. So I'm like, what do people need? People need to boost their immune system. People need to wash their hands and use disinfectant and hand sanitizer. Those are in short supply. So I literally set up another store, bravehealthstore.com. I built this in 2 days. Set this up. It's generating revenue. It's a side hustle. But the point is, folks, I hope that this economic calamity is a huge eye-opener, because this too shall pass. And yes, things are going to be very different when this is all over and said and done with. But this is going to happen again. There's going to be more economic calamity in the future. There's going to be more economic crisis. There's going to be more shifts and changes in the markets. And so it's absolutely imperative that we do everything we can in our power to earn a living, to have residual income, to have passive income, so that when shit hits the fan, we can take care of ourselves, our family, and if we're making enough money, we can help take care of our community. So this whole thing's a huge eye-opener, and it's only going to get worse. And now we see, what's another headline? We have a little economic section here. I invite you to bookmark this page, healthfreedom.report. This is another thing that I built when this whole coronavirus thing came up. I was like, man, people are going to be looking for news. Now's an opportunity to do Health Freedom Report. If you notice, it's not just an altruistic thing that I'm doing. I have advertisements here for Brave Health Store. I advertise my good buddy Robert Scott Bell's program down here. So it's like, we got to get crafty, man. We got to get innovative. We got to hustle big time. And so here's some other terrible economic news. Up to 30% of all mortgages will default That is nuts. And this is why we see my internet's running a little slow because I'm doing this live broadcast. This is why we see one of the first things that they did before the $2 trillion stimulus came forward is the Fed just started pumping out trillions and trillions of dollars and shoring up the banks. Because the way this whole thing works is everyone's having to stay home. Therefore, they're not paying their rent. Therefore, the mortgages aren't going to get paid, or you're not paying your mortgage because you lost your job. That the government sure as hell wasn't going to put that on the backs of the banks like we saw in the bailouts back in the 2008 housing crisis. So they first bailed out the banks. But there's only so much bailing out you can do before the economic house of cards comes a crumbling down because it's built on a false foundation. You can go back to one of my videos I did on the conscious resistance where I talked about, I think this was on my earlier Facebook wall. If you're friends with me on Facebook, you can find it. I'm banned on Facebook now, but I talked about how the chickens are going to come home to roost. You can't just inflate an economy endlessly with trillions and trillions of dollars and not expect there to be some unintended consequences, or maybe they're intended. I know you conspiracy theorists out there, Derek Bros followers, are going to think that's the case for sure. Unlike in the 2008 financial crisis, when a glut of subprime debt layered with trillions in CDOs and CDOs squared sent home prices to stratospheric levels before everything crashed, scarring an entire generation of home buyers, this time the housing sector is facing a far more conventional problem: the sudden and unpredictable inability of mortgage borrowers to make their scheduled monthly payments as the entire economy grinds to a halt due to the coronavirus pandemic. According to estimates by Moody's Analytic Chief Economist Mark Zandi, Moody's is a big deal and very reputable. As many as 30% of Americans with home loans, about 15 million households, could stop paying if the U.S. economy remains closed through summer or beyond. This is nuts. It's going to get bad. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And we all need to do what we can to shore up and be prepared. Do like a thought experiment. Okay, what would life be like for me if the economy had a true collapse? Not a housing crisis, recession, not even a recession, but a depression. Because this is way different than the housing crisis. A lot of people lost big investments, big corporations flunked, people's stock investments and their nest egg failed. People had to sell off their houses, all sorts of stuff, but people were still able to work, right? People got laid off and entire businesses failed, but people in mass could still work. Right now, we have half of the globe under lockdown, and only those essential businesses are able to work. That's another thing. If you got laid off and if you're unemployed right now, go figure out a way to have an essential business. Go look at your city or your state's order. And in the city of Austin, it's like 2 pages worth of what is deemed an essential business, and one of them is selling cleaning supplies or cleaning equipment to other businesses. So it's like, man, if you got a little bit of money sitting around, buy yourself some cleaning supplies, buy yourself some cleaning equipment, and start going and hustling it to the grocery stores and the gas stations, wherever you can. You got to get crafty in these crazy down economies. I need to do another video. Let me know if you guys would, I don't know if this conscious resistance audience, because I can't post on my own Facebook now, so I'm mainly posting the conscious resistance audience. If it would resonate with you to get economic advice, financial advice, advice on how to be crafty in an economic downturn so you can improve your financial situation for you and your family. Is that something that would be beneficial for you guys? Let me know in the comments, and I'll try to lean more into some videos like that. We see California. This is actually good news. This is something that more governments could do. Governments, they would just have to cut their budgets, right? And the reason why the economy is all thrown off too is because we have this huge nanny, patriarchal, maternal state that just wants to insists on getting involved in so many different things and regulating so many different things. But here we have the state of California. California delays sales tax payments for small businesses. California's governor says the state will let businesses keep up to $50,000 in sales tax over the next year. I'm willing to bet that they're going to have to pay that money back eventually. But that's actually a good solution rather than just inflating the economy endlessly. All right, I'm going to cover some comments. We'll read some of your comments, and then I'm going to just give you some quick advice and do one of these stories about immune support. We have a section on immune support that I think is really important. All right, so what do we got going on here? The internet was created by the CIA. Catholics in action on LSD. Man, Grateful Heretic, you should write a book about the Jesuit conspiracy. Maybe you have, but it seems to be an obsession of yours, which is okay. It's good to be obsessed about things, but man, seriously, you should write a book. It sounds like you probably have a deep wealth of knowledge on the Jesuit conspiracy. And again, my thing is like, I don't pin it on the Zionists or the Jesuits or the Roman Catholic Church or the Anglo-American establishment, the Rockefellers and Kissingers and company. It's like people that want to control other people versus everyone else, right? My good friend Ernest Hancock of Freedom Phoenix would say there's two types of people in this world. Those that want to be left alone, those that just won't leave you alone. So unfortunately, I think there's a conspiracy of those that just won't leave you alone, and they have a whole lot of power, and they're doing all sorts of problems. Injunctions prevent small biz shutdown. Trump confirmed states' rights. I don't know exactly what you mean by that. Honestly, I'm not a Trump fan. I think that he is an authoritarian, right? Like, he's not a libertarian. The only politician I would support becoming president or anything would be like a Ron Paul, right? I don't even believe we should have an office of the presidency. But I don't fault Trump for his handling of this as much as some other people in this world, even like libertarians and people in our free-thinking community. But obviously the left are faulting him completely. What I fault was the existing institutions that were already in place that made it hard to roll out a solution to the coronavirus. And we see Trump rolling back a lot of those regulations. Like the FDA put up all sorts of roadblocks that made it difficult for there to be swift action, swift innovation, entrepreneur, private sector taking charge. And I appreciate how Trump seemed to have rolled a lot of that back. Tyler Sutton says, I shared the viral video that was a collection of global citizens checking out the tents, hospitals that the mainstream media said were overwhelmed. The response I got was that these folks faked it. I've been watching that. And again, Derek Bros shot out like 5 videos today. The man's a freaking machine. I've known him since 2010. And I'm not a big fanboy, like I've been in these big circles and doing speeches and spoke alongside all sorts of big names and stuff. And I never was like all impressed by people like, oh my God, it's so-and-so, I want to get his autograph or whatever. I'm not going to say I want Derek Bros' autograph, but I am a fanboy of Derek Bros because the motherfucker can do some solid work and his message is what's on point. Really, it's not just fight the man, whatever. It's like do the internal work, but it's really, really good journalism. And he knocked out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos today, this guy. He is a machine, so check it out. But one of them was, is it wrong to film the hospitals? And so one thing, I haven't looked into all this. In fact, I'm getting more into my conspiracy side. I started doing conspiracy research back in 2002 when I caught Alex Jones's 9/11 Road to Tyranny on cable access here in Austin. Alex Jones lived in Austin. He still does. But I kind of moved away from the conspiracy research and got more into solutions because it's like, okay, I realized, 9/11 was a false flag. I beat my head against the wall, shouting at the rooftop, annoying the hell out of people for 10 years. Because talking about 9/11 truth back in 2002 was a very uncomfortable situation. And I really got shouted down a lot and like got kicked out of my local government class at the local community college for talking about Oklahoma City bombing, false flag and stuff. But I realized like so many people know 9/11 was an inside job and nothing ever got done about it. So I was like, all right, there are these conspiracies going on and there is a plan to create a totalitarian government, but it's like, what am I going to do about it? That's when I shifted my focus to agorism, cryptocurrency, building alternative institutions, right? But now I'm doing these videos again and like coalescing with all these conscious resistance folks, kind of starting to get a little bit more into it. But I always was sure that I wasn't having a confirmation bias, right? And so what I think might be happening with these hospital things, I'm not there. It's all about empirical evidence too, right? So like I'm not there, but I guess that's what these people did. I suspect what's taking place a lot. I do believe that there was overcrowding in Italy, right? And I suspect if someone went to New York City, if someone could show me some of these film the hospital things in New York City, I bet it would be full, but maybe it's not. But I think what we're anticipating is that the shit's going to get full now as more and more cases come about. And we've reached a phase where it's exponential and there's like 500 new deaths a day, 1,000 new deaths a day, so many more cases a day. And so I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, are the hospitals full or not? How does it affect my life? Government lies, media lies, conspiracies happen. There's a cabal of evil people that want to create a totalitarian one world government and end the cycle of revolutions so they can rule over a small reduced population that's dumbed down and ignorant. That's a fact, Jack. What are we going to do about it? freedomcells.org, freedomcells.org. But I know the research is all, and then maybe it helps discredit all their stuff. 1,200 to interest, 500 to principal. Not sure what that means, but I think people are going to get $1,200 checks, but really it's all debt, and all money is debt for that matter. Our reality has become a hybrid of 1984 and Brave New World. This is true. Just a matter of time before Logan's Run gets in on the act. I haven't seen Logan's Run, but I guess I need to watch it. It sounds like another dystopian true movie that's coming on. Jessup Gerald asks, why did they ban me? Well, I got banned for 30 days back in February for offering a free ounce of Kratom to people. And then I got banned again because I posted on my wall, hey, I'm looking to hire some people to help sell hand sanitizer. I've been having a lot of luck selling it to gas stations, liquor stores, and bodegas. And then I got banned, and it said that I violated the community standards because I was trying to sell alcohol. It's not what I was doing. Maybe because I said liquor store. Even if I was selling alcohol or worked at a liquor store, I'm trying to hire someone to sell alcohol, not sell alcohol. I wasn't selling alcohol. I was selling hand sanitizer. Yes, it has alcohol in it, though. Oh, man. Shit's nuts. And it's a bummer to not have Facebook right now because I really do a lot of networking on there. Aldous Huxley, ties to Technocratic Royal Society, forced reading by design. Yeah, man, the public schools are big time trouble. Taylor Swift, something happens when everybody finds out. See the vulture circling in the dark clouds. I don't know what that reference is, but I am a Taylor Swift fan. My daughter, she's 8 years old, got me jamming all sorts of Taylor Swift all the time. Look at the rates offered. Banksters are still screwing us. Treasury 10 years at like 0.6%. The Fed's rate is 0.25%, yet the average 30-year mortgage is still 3.5%. I know it's all a fraud. Everybody's just coming in and getting their little piece of the pie. It's all trouble. Are these lyrics to a Taylor Swift song? Where'd that go? The most interesting thing of the night is Taylor Swift lyrics, if you ask me. All right, looks like there's too many posts here. Anyway, okay, guys, let's just get to some little last bit of news here, and then we will wrap up and go to bed. So this is an article from CNBC, and it says, stock up on these 9 healthy foods to boost your immune system during coronavirus, says doctor and dietitian. So going out to the grocery store, hope you're stocking up as much as you can. Oftentimes the fresh food is all done and gone, but here's some fresh foods that can help boost your immune system. Red bell peppers. Red bell peppers reign supreme when it comes to fruit and vegetables and are high in vitamin C. 2017 study published in the National Institute of Health found that vitamin C contributes to immune defense by supporting a variety of cell functions and can lower the risk of respiratory infections. That sounds like a good thing for coronavirus. Broccoli. Gotta love some broccoli. Little trees, I used to call them. It's also rich in vitamin C. Just half a cup contains 43% of your daily value of vitamin C, according to the National Institute of Health. We can't trust them, but I'll trust them when they say that. Chickpeas. These are good. You soak them in water. You can cook them. You can soak them in water and eat them with salt. Strawberries. Who doesn't love strawberry? Again, this article is just all about foods that you can eat to boost your immune system. Because believe it or not, I genuinely believe that there is coronavirus spreading all throughout the land, and it's definitely not a good idea to get it. However, people are going to get the freaking coronavirus. It's not going to go away. I'm not going to take a vaccine for the coronavirus, so it could be inevitable that the coronavirus comes along. I haven't gotten the flu in I don't know how long, 15 years, 10 years. I haven't had flu-like symptoms in quite some time. So it's possible that I've already had the freaking coronavirus and it came and went. Again, 80% of people, this is from China statistics, 80%, who can believe those? 80% of people who get coronavirus have little to no symptoms, mild to no symptoms. So, but nonetheless, this is all good advice for in general, and especially if you are a susceptible population or if you have a pre-existing condition. Garlic's a classic one. Garlic is in fact in ZAP The ingredients for Zap: organic onion, organic garlic, cinnamon, ginger, oregano, echinacea, crushed red pepper, grapeseed powder, rose hips, ginkgo biloba, cloves powder, cilantro, turmeric. Check this out at bravehealthstore.com. If you're watching this on the Conscious Resistance, I invite you to click the link down low. Conscious Resistance will get a little affiliate commission. This is good stuff. I take it every day. Mushrooms, not psilocybin, you guys out there. While sun exposure is the best source of vitamin D, that's another thing. Like in Britain, they're getting harassed for going to the beach and going on walks. But it's like vitamin D is one of the best things that you can have right now for your immune system. It can also be provided by some foods, including mushrooms. I eat my spinach because I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Spinach is great. It has all sorts of benefits. Vitamin C is another one of them. Yogurt, get yourself the good probiotics in there. Any type of fermented food, including kombucha, or what's the Korean kimchi is a good one too. Sunflower seeds, that's a nice little snack. Has vitamin E, which works as an antioxidant. So folks, again, I want to invite you to check out Health Freedom Report. We update it regularly, and it's not like Drudge Report, which is just pretty much mainstream stuff. We like to have a nice little angle. This is the breaking news. There's a little section here on surveillance. There's a section on lockdowns and police state stuff. And if you can see here up front, we have a huge section on immunity. And there's another story on, this is my headline too, cytokine storm, when your immune system kills you. One of the ways people are dying from coronavirus is their immune system is overreacting and throwing all these cells in the organs, even when the coronavirus has been pushed back a bit. And that's causing problems. That's one of the ways that apparently healthy people are dying. Although when you look at the numbers, well, I haven't looked at the global numbers, but I do monitor the Texas numbers and the Travis County numbers. And the people that are dying in large part are generally older and have pre-existing conditions. In fact, in Italy, 99% of the fatalities had one or more pre-existing conditions. So, yep. All right, let me go through a couple of these notes, and then I'm going to call it a night. I want to thank you for checking us out. Again, I invite you to bookmark this Health Freedom Report. Bookmark it. Here's how you do it on Chrome. See, there I am again using Google. I normally use Firefox, but I can't figure out how to disable my ad blocker. And a lot of these articles, a lot of these websites, I'm sure you notice nowadays, they're like, do you have to disable your ad blocker? You can't view our site. And so here's how you bookmark something. So go to healthfreedom.report, healthfreedom.report, bookmarks, bookmark this tab. Same kind of deal in Firefox or Internet Explorer or Safari or whatever it's using. I invite you to bookmark this, show us some love, check it out, sign up for our newsletter, shop at the Brave Health Store, click the link below, Derek Broze and the Conscious Resistance, get some support. Zap. Herbal immune function. Can't trust the government. No, you cannot. Thanks to the guys that have stuck around like this whole thing, sticking with me for an hour or so. You are what fuels our fire and keeps us going. Here in the UK, we are sitting ducks. Yeah, man. You know, you may not be able to leave now, but there's this whole concept of voting with your feet. And so it's really important for people that are in a really tyrannical political jurisdiction, which is just about everywhere in the world, but some are worse than others. Like the United States is relatively free compared to China, for example, and some other places, and a lot of places in Europe as well, with the despotic European Union overarching and controlling all sorts of stuff, especially when it comes to economic stuff and natural health and supplements and Codex Alimentarius. But if you're like in New York State or Connecticut or Massachusetts or communist California or UK, move to another place, try another jurisdiction. I know it's easier said than done. People have family, careers and stuff, but we do have a relative amount of freedom where we can leave our jurisdiction, unlike North Korea and China. So I would consider trying something out, something different when things are over. These psychopaths are successful. Our way of life is over for good. Our grandchildren will never taste anything close to what we once knew. Oh, you know, I do my best to remain optimistic, and I try to juxtapose how things used to be like 300 to 400 years ago in the medieval days, and the divine right of kings, and people were drawn and quartered in the public square with heads sticking on stakes up in poles as a reminder not to speak out against the king, right? We have come a long way. And just think about this. Like, here I am doing this broadcast. I've been an activist and done a lot of radical stuff and like literally visited fusion centers when the Department of Homeland Security, everyone's like, oh my God, the Department of Homeland Security, they're creating female concentration camps. They're going to be the Gestapo. They're going to get us all. Me and my ex-wife literally drove to Department of Homeland Security fusion centers on National Guard military bases, walked in with cameras rolling, handed open records requests over, and started probing and asking a bunch of questions and being pests, journalist pests. I'm doing this broadcast sharing some really radical ideas. Derek Broze is sharing some really radical ideas. There's radio programs. There's all sorts of crazy stuff. And while, yes, it does get censored from Facebook and YouTube, and like people like Alex Jones got totally scrubbed from all that stuff, the information is still accessible. And this is pretty radical, you know? And I don't want to be like a slave that's like, thank you, master, for giving me the internet and I could communicate. But it's all about just taking stock for what we do have and being grateful for the freedoms that we do have, because we do have a lot of freedom in this country, especially compared to others. And if we focus on that, and if we live more free in our own lives, then I think we can manifest more freedom in our own lives and we could spread that freedom even more. But if we focus on the tyranny and the pain and the control grid, not to say to ignore that, but if that's our focus, then we're going to feel small. We're going to feel scared. We're going to feel insignificant and insecure, and we're going to feel like slaves. But if we focus on the freedom that we all have and the beauty and the love and the joy and the spontaneous order that's around us, like even when I'm driving around and there's like a little traffic circle or a yield, and it's like, oh, things just spontaneously, the freedom that people have to act in their own self-interest. It's a beautiful thing. All right. Anyway, I have 2 kids. And I'm going to have grandkids someday. And I'm hoping that it's like the technology, it's a paradox. The technology is simultaneously creating less freedom and more control, but the technology on the same token is simultaneously creating more freedom and less control. All right, everybody. I think I'm going to, what do we got here? If we don't have a revolution of some kind, how are we ever going to have justice? And how are we ever going to have good core beliefs if we don't have justice? How will there be good intention? You know, I hope that it doesn't come down to revolution, but if it does, you know, that's that. But I think there's a cycle of revolutions, like the root of the word is revolve, and it just creates a cycle. And the revolution is like, oh, overthrow the powers that be. And then we take that position of power, and then power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And then you're just back where you started. What I prefer besides revolution is peaceful evolution, where we have an evolution of ideas, an evolution of humankind, where we learn to respect one another, have compassion for one another, and we value freedom more. And I think it's through education, through the sharing of ideas, that we're going to change the culture, and hopefully government and social organizations will catch up. That's the hope. All right, guys, I appreciate everybody tuning in. This has been a Health Freedom Report for April 3rd, 2020. Remember to bookmark healthfreedom.report, join the email newsletter so you can get updates when we publish new content. And peace and freedom. Support the conscious resistance. We're out. Yo, yo, yo. Peace and freedom. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.